Ever get this feeling like, you stumble onto a story and it's just way bigger than it looks at first?
Oh, absolutely. Like you just peeked behind the curtain and
Exactly. And that's how I felt with this whole Tayler Hansen thing. He's calling himself an independent journalist, but it's a lot more complicated.
it always is, right?
And his whole thing about January 6th, wild. Just wild how that's evolved. So we're going to break it all down.
Love it. Okay, so where do we even start with this?
Well, lucky for us, Seth Abramson over at Proof did some seriously impressive digging. Court docs, social media, the works.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't mess around.
Not at all. And the picture it paints of Hansen, well, let's just say it raises some major questions.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What's the deal with this guy?
All right, so he's trying to rock this whole independent journalist image, right? But then you see what Abramson found, and it's like, hold on a sec. Take January 5th, 2021, the day before the Capitol riot.
Most journalists are probably, prepping for a huge day, getting their gear ready.
Exactly. But not Hansen. He's at a Stop the Steal rally, hanging with the Proud Boys, even filmed himself burning a Black Lives Matter flag.
Whoa, not exactly subtle.
Yeah, it doesn't scream unbiased observer, does it? It makes you think, was he really at the Capitol to report on what was happening or to be a part of it?
Yeah, you've got a point. That's a good question.
And then there's his online activity, so YouTube suspends his account.
Which, let's be real, happens to a lot of people.
Right. But he freaks out, cries censorship, jumps over to Rumble. Fine, whatever. But then, get this, the stuff he chooses to push to this new audience. Videos about leftist violence, illegals, invasions. Like, come on.
Hitting all the right-wing buzzwords.
Yeah.
And he's not exactly being subtle about it either, is he?
Nope. Not even a little.
Yeah.
It's like he knows exactly what kind of content gets a certain audience fired up. But wait, it gets better. Abramson, he includes these photos of Hansen with some interesting company.
Oh.
Tucker Carlson, Trump Jr., even Marjorie Taylor Greene makes an appearance.
Well, now that is interesting, because that's what makes this more than just some guy with a camera and an opinion.
Yeah.
Why would someone like Hansen, with this specific brand of content, be rubbing shoulders with major players in the MAGA world?
Right. It just makes you wonder who's using who here.
Absolutely. And this is all before we even get to the whole Kremlin connection.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten there yet. That's where it goes from interesting to downright unsettling. Okay, so the Kremlin connection. This is where things get really wild.
Yeah, this is where you start to go, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Totally. So remember all that evidence Abramson dug up? Well, one bombshell came straight from the DOJ. Turns out Tayler Hansen was part of a group called the Tenet Six.
Okay.
And the Department of Justice revealed that this group, they were influencers secretly funded by the Kremlin.
No way. Seriously.
Seriously. And not even trying to be subtle about it. We're talking serious cash, all to push pro-Russia talking points, stir up trouble here in the U.S.
Okay, so this wasn't just some random let's cause chaos thing for the Kremlin, was it?
No, not at all. They were laser focused on this idea of a civil war in America.
Wow.
This group, they were obsessed. Videos, social media, the whole 9 yards. They were like a broken record about a civil war.
Which, let's be real, is straight out of the authoritarian playbook, right?
Oh, yeah. Classic move. A country divided against itself. It's a weak country. They don't even have to bother with tanks when they can get us to do the dirty work for them.
It's chilling. And this is where Hansen's January 6th stuff goes from interesting to really freaking concerning.
Yeah.
We've got him on camera, right in the thick of it, yelling, "Storm that shit!" as the Capitol is breached. He even films Ashley Babbitt getting shot.
And let's be real, that's not something a casual observer just happens to capture on film.
Right, like, come on.
He was right there with the Proud Boys after spending the whole day before with them, too. But then it gets weirder. He does this complete 180 at a congressional hearing.
Which, by the way, was organized by Marjorie Taylor Greene. Just throwing that out there.
Of course it was. But yeah, so he's at this hearing, and it's like watching a car crash in slow motion. He throws his own HBO interview under the bus, tries to spin this tale of a peaceful protest that only got out of hand because the police were too aggressive.
Except there's zero evidence for that. And a mountain of evidence against it, including his own words.
Exactly. It's almost laughable how bad the lies are. Like, he claims he went to the Capitol because he was worried about left-wing violence.
Okay.
Because, and I quote, Trump supporters have a history of being attacked at rallies. I mean, come on.
Have you seen a Trump rally? Please.
Exactly. It's almost too perfect, the irony. And of course, he conveniently forgets to mention his own ties to the Proud Boys, who, let's be honest, are not exactly known for their peaceful protests.
Not really their break.
Not at all. But instead, he's trying to play the neutral observer, just caught up in the moment.
Ah.
Even throws in this totally baseless claim about seeing Antifa everywhere, even though there's zero proof of that either.
It's like he had a disinformation checklist and he was determined to hit every single point.
Right. It's infuriating and honestly a little scary how easily people buy into it.
It is.
But it all begs the question, why bother? Why go through all this to rewrite what happened on January 6th?
Yeah.
What's the end game here? So we've got Tayler Hansen caught in his own web of stories about January 6th, potentially taking money from the Kremlin and bending over backwards to downplay what really went down.
It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. And it just makes you wonder, what's the point of all this? Why work so hard to rewrite history?
$1 million question, right? It's like we can't read Hansen's mind.
Right.
But we can look at the bigger picture. Remember how our source material mentioned those growing concerns about, Russian interference in the 2024 election? And then you've got groups like the Proud Boys.
Who Hansen's still chuddy-buddy with, by the way.
Exactly. And they're not exactly known for, peaceful dialogue and compromise.
No, not really their style.
So when someone like Hansen tries to whitewash January 6th, it's not just about the past.
Right.
It's about setting the stage for what's next.
Because if people believe what happened then was no big deal.
Or even some false flag operation.
Exactly. It becomes so much easier to justify violence in the future.
It normalizes the unthinkable. It's laying the groundwork for round 2, but this time with even less accountability.
Even less pushback.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's got to be scary for anyone listening.
It should be. Because this time the stakes are even higher. We're not just talking about, a contentious election anymore.
Right.
It's the very real potential for widespread unrest, fueled by disinformation.
And often orchestrated by the people who benefit most from the chaos.
It's messed up. But what does that actually mean, for the average person listening to this right now? They didn't ask to be caught up in some, shadowy political thriller.
No, they didn't. But the truth is, we can't afford to be passive anymore. We can't just sit back and be like, well, that's politics for you.
So what do we do?
We've got to be critical about what we see online, what we hear. Question those sources, especially if it fits your own views. Look for real evidence.
Don't just take things at face value.
Exactly. And be wary of anyone who benefits from turning us against each other, from sowing distrust, because that's what this is all about, control.
It's about upping our media literacy game big time.
Big time.
Yeah.
Don't fall for clickbait. Do your own digging. And remember, the truth is rarely as exciting as the stories people spin to manipulate us.
And that's the really unsettling part, right?
It is.
If Hansen was willing to twist his January 6th story so drastically...
It's just straight up a lie.
Exactly. What else is he willing to do or say to further his agenda? And who might get hurt along the way?
That's the question we should all be asking.
That's our deep dive for today. Thanks for listening.